to start out with the roll call, see if we have a quorum. Okay, I'm gonna start the bottom and go up. Cynthia Rothermill,
Here.
Kimberly Padkey. Kimberly, are you here? Joseph Levine. Here. Melody Mercer.
Here.
Andrea Gregg.
Here.
Sherry Ferguson. Babette Ellis.
Here.
Dr. Richard Cordes. Here. And I'm here.
Are you sure?
I hope y'all can hear me. Today is the 23rd. Are you here?
In body at least.
You. Okay, we'll start with public comments, and we're going to start with, let's see who I had first here. Rachel Yarger. You can see it, and it's limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Over the past 10 years, I've volunteered at shelters and for local dog rescues, and have adopted dogs that have been used for breeding in the past. I've seen what poor housing can do to breeding dogs firsthand. I've seen dogs walking awkwardly because they were not used to walking on solid ground. I've seen sores on their feet from standing on wire flooring for 24 hours a day. I'm here to request that your committee improve the current regulations around kennel flooring in order to reduce these types of injuries and behavioral issues. I'm asking that you consider strengthening the regulations by requiring solid flooring instead of wire flooring. Many organizations, including the AKC and the American Veterinary Medical Association, oppose wire flooring. Their studies have shown that wire flooring can lead to foot injuries, including painful sores, lesions, infections, and toenails that are ripped out. In fact, leg and paw injuries are among the most common veterinary problems noted by the USDA inspectors. I urge you to consider updating the regulations to address this issue. Thank you again for listening to my concern, and thank you for your continued effort in ensuring that the industry is properly regulated.
Thank you, Rachel. Melissa Crandall.
Hi there, I'm Melissa. Good morning. First of all, thank you all for all your work you do. And it's Rachel. I'm here as an individual, also volunteered in the past. And as she mentioned, despite the current Texas regulations requiring, you want me to get closer? Sure. Sure. Requiring that floors must be constructed in a manner that the dog's paw does not fall through any openings. In practice, this happens regularly. It becomes a major problem. Any opening really where the feces can fall through opening, the dog's paw or toe can also fall easily through this opening. And when that happens, if a dog attempts to then pull his limb back through that wire, serious lacerations can occur or even broken bones. And in fact, USDA inspection reports consistently demonstrate these physical injuries to the dogs as a result of wire flooring. Even the flooring that's coated, in plastic or fiberglass, coated flooring. There's ample evidence, both photographic and in written inspection reports, that dogs are often balancing on these floors, with their feet splayed under the pressure of their own weight, and this causes some serious, sores and cysts between their toes. And further, current state standards require that the floors of indoor housing facilities, even any flooring that surface that contacts with the animals, be impervious to moisture. But however, wire flooring is not impervious to moisture. It can rust, it can weaken, it can even break, causing sharp, objects to be exposed and further injury, risk increase to the animals. So, as I mentioned, I'm just asking you guys if you can just really support stronger regulations for flooring for these animals. And thank you very much again for your time.
Thank you. I'm gonna back up. I skipped, we need to get the approval of the minutes. So do we have a motion for approval of those for the last meeting?
I so move.
I'll second.
Ellis?
Got that, motion, and Dr. Cordy is second. Vote on the committee. And
Oh. Is that correct? You want to review it? Watch the video.
Oh, okay, she can go if she reviewed the minutes, but if she wasn't a member of the commission, the advisory, and she wasn't at that meeting. Yeah.
it was approved unanimously. Okay, back to the public comments. This is just here. John Randall.
First of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak and for your consideration. I believe the current rules fail in certain ways to fulfill the mandate to ensure the safety, health, and well-being of these animals, but instead put them in harm's way. I request a change to the rules A, section 91.103, which is standards of care outdoor facilities. Subsection A1C2 should include a prohibition of animals being kept outdoors in temperatures that exceed 90 degrees Fahrenheit. Obviously, Texas heat is extreme in the summertime, and it is dangerous to the health, safety, and well-being of animals kept outdoors. Recommending that subsection C2 be amended as follows. When their acclimation status is unknown, dogs or cats must not be kept in outdoor facilities when the temperature is less than 50 degrees or 10 degrees Celsius or more than 90 degrees Fahrenheit or 37.2 degrees Celsius. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Audrey Tamez. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you all for listening to our comments today and for the ongoing work you're doing in considering these new standards. My name's Audrey Tamez, and I've been involved in the animal welfare industry for over 5 years now. So I'm excited to have the opportunity to speak with you all for a couple minutes today. In the case where feces has been caked into the wire flooring, water causes pools of urine and feces to accumulate in the cages, leading to the spread of disease. Moreover, wire flooring is more difficult to keep clean. The current sanitation standards require licensed breeders to clean primary enclosures daily or as often as necessary to prevent an excessive accumulation of feces and food waste, to prevent soiling of animals contained in the primary enclosures, and to reduce disease hazards. However, these problems are difficult to manage with wire flooring. On the other hand, partial or full solid flooring, as recommended by the American Veterinary Medical Association, or AVMA, is less likely to create unsanitary conditions. It's actually easier to clean solid flooring than it is to remove feces on wire strand flooring. Solid flooring, along with daily removal of waste, would provide more sanitary conditions than wire flooring, where feces is encrusted on the floor and cannot be removed without substantial effort. In fact, at the January 4th, 2012 Advisory Committee meeting, members agreed that solid or partial solid flooring was in the best interest of the animals based on the AVMA's recommendations and standards. We agree and believe that solid flooring is more comfortable for the dogs, allowing them to move around and rest more naturally. At the very least, we recommend animals be provided with a solid floor or a resting board that covers at least 50% of the floor space in the enclosure. Where cage flooring is not entirely solid, the remaining floor space should comply with section 91.1041BX. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Kimber Marshall.
Hello and good morning, Advisory Committee members. My name is Kimber Marshall, and I thank you for your service and devotion to this committee. I live in Round Rock, Williamson County, and I have been serving as a volunteer with Austin Humane Society's foster program for the past 3 years, and with Texas Humane Legislation Network in various roles for the past 8 years. It is with gratitude, respect, and sincerity I come to you today with my comments. The current rules offer the most basic standards of care that are already based on the very minimum standards required under the Federal Animal Welfare Act regulations. We ask TDLR, or I ask, to provide increased safety and comfort of the dogs in order to fully meet its mandate, and in particular ask you consider strengthening the rules on flooring requirements. Wire flooring is a well-known primary contributor to injury and has been known to cause lethal entrapment injuries in puppies. Given that Texas law requires housing that protects dogs from injury, the elimination of wire flooring should be expedited. A solid surface or a slated surface is the safest and most comfortable flooring for dogs. At the very least, a solid flooring surface should be provided in each enclosure that is large enough for all the animals in the enclosure to lie down on the solid area at the same time. This gives the animals relief from discomfort of wire and an opportunity to curl up and rest comfortably to maintain their body heat in cold temperatures. Many other states require a full or partial solid resting area, and Texas should too. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sherry Chang.
First, I want to thank you, community, for all the opportunity for us to speak it out. And this is very personal for me too. So on the section 91.112, addresses the veterinary care, but the rule in the subsection B should go further in protecting animal from surgical procedure conducted by non-veterinarians. Only a veterinarian shall be allowed to euthanize an animal or perform a surgical procedure such as a cesarean birth, debarking and tail docking, and ear cropping or clout removal. This procedure should not be conducted by unlicensed individuals as they are involved complicated veterinary surgical skills. In addition, these procedures often require sedation or anesthesia and prescription drugs. A layperson cannot legally obtain or dispense. This was recommended by the advisory committee when the initially rule were being discussed by the commission failed to follow this recommendation. And thank you so much to listen to us. I'm a little nervous, but this is so personally because I go through this exactly. It was really, really hard for me. Thank you so much for your lesson.
Thank you. Ernest Samdio. Did I get that close?
Hello, committee members. My name is Ernest Samudio. Thank you for giving me a moment to speak about dog breeding in Texas. When I talk to my friends about friends and family who are considering buying a puppy from a dog breeder in our state, I always urge them to ask a lot of questions. And here's why. Because I think that the standards for care for dogs used for breeding purposes in this state are set too low and therefore do not protect dogs from injury. In particular, the cage size currently allowed is wholly inadequate for decent husbandry practices. The current requirement gives the dog only 3 inches in front and 3 inches in the back of its body. That's barely enough room which to turn around in. Keep in mind this does not include the tail length, which results in the tail hitting each wall every time the dog turns around. For example, a cage floor for a dog that is 18 inches from tip of nose to base of tail would be only a 4 square foot space in which it would spend its entire life. TDLR should double the required floor size of a primary enclosure. Even though this would still produce a small confinement area, it would at least allow the dog to take a few steps forward and sideways, and it would give the dog a little bit more room to stretch its limbs. This increased cage size was recommended by the Advisory Commission when the initial rules were being discussed, but the Commission failed to follow that recommendation. Thank you very much for your time on this important issue, and thank you very much for your time on this Commission.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to move on to the staff
Mr.
reports, or?
Chairman, you have one additional comment.
Okay. Thank you. Pat Vols-Trillis, correct?
Yes. Thank you, Chairperson and members of the Advisory Committee. I am here to speak in support of what Ernest Samudio just said. I will not give the details, he already gave them to you, but I support his statement that your standards are too low. I have been an animal advocate in Austin for 25 years. I try to improve the lives of animals both inside shelters and in the community, and I think that's what you as an advisory committee are here to do. I support your work. I hope you will take the testimony you've heard today into consideration and at least make forward progress in improving the lives of dogs that are in these horrible, horrible conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Beardsley.
Apologize for my lack of organization, but thank you for allowing me to speak. Morning, everyone. Thank you.
Morning.
I'm going to bounce off of my fellow committee member over there about floor sizing. The current regulation standards for enclosures are too small. The USDA actually acknowledges that the requirements are minimal and not optimal. USDA also requires that breeders who don't have current exercise plans for their dogs should consider doubling their floor size. This is, other states do this, for example, Missouri, Pennsylvania, and Oklahoma. So, thank you. I'll make it quite short so other people can talk. So, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Amanda Phillips.
Hi, I'm from Georgetown, and I just wanted to ask you to please increase the breeding restrictions, because right now the law says that a breeder has to have 11 or more dogs or cats before they have to have a license. I would...
Yeah, hold on one second. It just, yeah, it drowned you out.
Can you hear me now? Okay. So from what I read, the law states that a breeder has to have 11 dogs or cats before they are required to get a license. I would like to see every person that breeds dogs or cats to have a license. I would also like every breeder to please spay or neuter their dogs or cats prior to purchase, because there are too many dogs and cats filling our animal shelters. We have hundreds of animal shelters that are filled to double and triple capacity all over Texas. Animals are dying. Not all the animal shelters are no-kill, so I think that improving the breeding restrictions and requiring a license for every single person that breeds dogs or cats and having the animals be spayed or neutered prior to purchase would help to alleviate the pet overpopulation problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Bobby Barnett.
Good morning, committee. And
Morning. Morning.
My name's Bobby Barnett. I have B&B Kennel, and I've had it for 20 years, and I've never had a dog break its leg, have a sore, pull a toenail out. on the wire. The wire does not rust, it is coated wire. We would not put our dogs on wire that wasn't plastic coated. And the dogs don't live on wire, they live on wire while they're whelping to keep the puppies and the mamas safe, not all the time. And as far as all this other cage size, our cage sizes are good. All of us usually put a bed in the whelping room for the puppies to be on anyway, as far as a resting place. Have the inspectors complained about any of the kennels being substandard? They haven't at my place, and if they are, we need to talk to the inspectors and see what they find wrong, not people that don't raise dogs. And as far as the shelters is no comparison to a kennel. Shelter dogs, probably, I don't know what should probably know more about it than I do, but they're street dogs that just continually breed and breed. Now there are some that might have came from a kennel and somebody was not a good owner, but that's not on the kennel itself, it's on the person that bought the dog. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Did you get her paper? Should have got her paper.
Let's see. Liz Carrizo. Carrasco.
Thank you. I am just here to say that I do also believe that the standards are too minimum, and I would like you to be a little more considerate of these beings that are living in these awful conditions, and I would like you to base your standards on what the AVMA has written down and considered to be more of a better living condition for these animals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve.
Kathleen Davis.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a board member for Texas Humane Legislation Network, a not-for-profit organization that lobbies for and supports humane laws for animals. Prior to becoming a board member, I served as the Director of Animal Care Services for San Antonio, and before retiring from San Antonio, excuse me, I also served in the same capacity for the cities of Dallas, Texas, Los Angeles, and South Bend, Indiana. I'd like to thank the department for its efforts over the past 5 years in establishing this program for enforcing the dog and cat breeder laws. The department is vested with promulgating rules to ensure overall health, safety, and well-being of each animal. To fulfill this requirement, substantial improvements must be made to the minimum standards. It is essential that the department expand upon its standards of care for breeding dogs, particularly with regard to the size of the cage. Small cage size, coupled with overcrowding found in commercial breeding facilities, restricts the comfort and natural movement of dogs, sometimes leading to fights and limiting access to food and water. Our recommendation would be to double the cage size for dogs in licensed breeding facilities. Even with doubling the cage size, these pets will still be confined to a very small space, some for their entire lives. This additional cage space will allow a dog to move about a bit more freely and provide the opportunity for more normal, comfortable movements. I measured the size limits against my own dog size and really find that it's quite confining for any dog. We deeply appreciate your consideration of this request for an increase in cage space and would be happy to answer any questions you might have of this request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Daniel Beard.
Hello, everybody. Sorry I'm
Good
late.
morning.
I thought the meeting was at 9:30. I misunderstood. I'm Daniel Beard. I helped my parents run a hobby kennel. We were licensed by this great committee over here, or pardon me for being nervous. I have a couple of things I wanted to bring up. I only have a view from a microcosm view, just from our kennel. And the current situation is the law is so effective, you're changing the whole dynamics of the entire industry. I don't think you're quite comprehending how effective y'all are. Breeding ages are from 2 to 7 years. So essentially, every 7 years, you have a generation of dogs. At the current state, y'all are choking the market. It's going to affect the veterinarians. It's going to affect the entire industry. We haven't sold as a hobby, I've just got to get over this nervousness, forgive me. Most of our customers used to be single families with small children before this law came into effect. We haven't sold a single puppy to a family with small children in 2 years. The only people buying dogs from us now because of the price structure are pretty much retired people who have substantial income. It's really affecting things. Most vets I talk to, over 50% of them, do not understand that this law is impacting them, not now, but down the road. We haven't seen these dogs die off yet, so they've still got a supply base to service. But if the trend continues, you're going to see serious income disparity in your veterinarians' clinics. Now, I understand that the animal rescues are picking up the slack, but they're not regulated by this bill. They don't have to, they have a serious cost advantage by not having to comply with the same rules. And I personally think they need to be brought into this program also. I also think y'all have the data that comes in and says how many dogs we have and how many dogs we've sold. So y'all have accurate yearly data of what's going on with the industry and why this information isn't being passed on to the universities to crunch the numbers and determine what's coming down the road so that y'all can adjust and tweak your laws and rules to maintain an adequate supply for 27 million Texans to have a pet. You've already created a situation where it's an oligarchy. Only a few, I'm sure it's less than 100 people are raising dogs. And so there's very little competition. There's very little incentive for anybody to step into this program. And I really would like y'all to reconsider the severity of your implementation of the rules. Now, TDLR has been extremely professional. I don't know how they managed to work this because it's a complicated thing in the politics at the same time trying to maintain people to actually license. But as y'all push them to get stricter and stricter rules or implementation of the rules that are in existence, you're going to start forcing people like us out of it. When I originally came to help my parents with their kennel, we were doing over 400 puppies a year. We're not very confident that we're going to be able to stay in the program, so we've downsized and we're doing less than 100 in anticipation that we're going to be forced out. And I really want y'all to consider your program is extremely effective in accomplishing what you were set out to do, but you're going way beyond effectiveness and getting pets in people's hands. You're making it almost a class society where only rich people can have a pet, a purebred pet, as opposed to people who have a pet at all. And at least consider what I'm saying. Get the universities involved. They have mathematicians, they have experts in the veterinarian field. They can look at what's going on with the numbers and verify what I'm saying is true or not. And it's just a simple warning. I want y'all to pay attention that y'all are really choking this industry to the point that we're going to see over $2,000 a puppy before Christmas. And that's absurd, absolutely absurd.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe Mr. Byrd may have gone over his 3 minutes.
There's our timekeeper. I didn't get jumped on about that.
Well, I'm fine. I got my message out. Thank you all for your time. And
Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much for all the work y'all done.
Okay, I believe I'm Correct, now to move on to our report from the executive office.
Excuse me, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Carla James, relatively new Deputy Executive Director for the agency. Been around
Prettier than the
about.
last one.
I'm sorry?
Prettier than the last one.
That's what I like to say. Prettier and younger than the last one, but he's my boss now, so I probably shouldn't tell that too many times. This is my first breeder meeting, so thank you for the welcome. And provide you a real quick update of what the agency's been up to legislatively for the last 8 or so months. It was a very busy legislative session for us. There were over 6,000 bills filed in the legislature this session. We tracked a little under 350, and that's a pretty big load for an agency our size, and did almost 250 cost estimates, which are required for each bill so that the legislature understands how much a proposed bill would cost the state. We had a very successful legislative session with about a 93% success rate, and put that into perspective, a normal success rate for an agency is under 20%. So our staff did a great job, worked very hard, so we were very pleased with the session. There was one bill to bring to your attention that we followed very closely during session, and that was House Bill 162, and that was related to community supervision for defendants convicted of certain animal offenses. Currently in Texas, judges can direct people who are convicted of certain animal offenses to take an online a pet responsibility course, and there are limited resources around the state to do that. So this bill directs our agency to create rules and work on an online course that judges can direct defendants to take throughout the state, so that they're not having to take them in jurisdictions where they don't live, or the availability is not there for the judge to provide. And I think that pretty much wraps up the legislative update for this board, and I am happy to answer any questions you all may have.
I don't believe I have any questions, so we thank you, Ms. James. So, move on to the compliance division report.
Good morning. I'm Russell Tolley with the Compliance Division, and I'm going to talk about some of the outreach efforts compliance has done during this year. We've been, as Carla said, incredibly busy with the legislative process. Since the last board meeting, we have developed a flyer, an informational brochure that we can pass out at market days or some of these regional flea markets where a lot of pet sellers gather. It's an informational brochure, tells about TDLR, how to become licensed, who needs to be licensed. If they suspect unlicensed activity or wish to file a complaint, it directs them how to do that. It provides contact information so they can ask more questions of us. I did attend the most recent Canton Trade Days, and that was my first visit, and I have to say it's amazing. I had no idea it was so large. I think I took 50 business cards. I thought, oh, that'll cover it, and I think that was, covered maybe a 10th of it or a 20th of it, so not that much. But I did go around, shake everyone's hand, introduce myself, passed out cards, flyers, answered questions, let them know that I was there to help. Basically, I was impressed by the number of licensed breeders who were there, had their license posted on the wall. Once they understood I wasn't there providing a spot inspection, everybody was very friendly. Even the non-licensed people were very friendly. They would explain that, I'm from Oklahoma, or I'm from Arkansas or Louisiana, and I'm not required to have a license, or I only have 4 dogs, that I breed, or I sell only, a handful of puppies a year. So there's a lot of people there who are not licensed and seem to fall under the requirements for the Texas Breeders Act. I'm available if you have any information or about other locations where I should attend. Canton is the largest collection that I'm aware of, but if you know of other places, I'd be happy to attend. So that concludes my report.
Can we get a copy of the flyer?
Sure.
Do you have-
Sure, I can email you a copy of the flyer
That'd be
for
great,
everyone.
thank you.
All right.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russ. Enforcement Division.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. I'm Karen Cox. I'm here to give you the staff report from the enforcement section. The key statistics that we have in the reports today cover the fiscal year 2017, 11 of the 12 months. It's through July 31st. Case highlights. There were 3 agreed orders. April 17th, an agreed order was issued against Sharon Larimore, assessing a penalty of $1,500 for acting without a license. On June 5th, an agreed order was entered for failing to maintain primary enclosures without sharp points or edges. There were sharp points or edges in the primary enclosure. On June 16th, there was a commission order. This is an order entered after a contested case hearing at SOA, assessing a penalty of $3,000 for acting as a dog breeder without a license. And on July 26th, there was an agreed order assessing a penalty of $4,000, again for unlicensed activity. During the fiscal year 2017, beginning September 1 and continuing through July 31st of this year, there were 55 cases opened in this program, 51 cases resolved, 10 agreed orders, assessing penalties of $19,705 and collecting $12,505 in penalties. May I answer any questions?
Looks like your excuse.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank
Jefferson.
you. Move on to the Field Operations Division.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Tanya Guthrow. I'm the director of the Field Operations Division at TDLR. And our folks are the folks who go out and do the inspections. In our report, we've listed our most common violations that were noted during inspections. And these are as of the end of June. Our next item is about personnel, and actually there's some corrections that we need to put forth for you folks. We were able and lucky enough to be able to post for 6 positions, and this is for the overall division, and we are in the process of trying to hire 5 new inspectors. One thing to note is that, relatively speaking, this program is one of the smaller programs that we inspect. There's under 200 licensees. And so we really, right now, have 3 dedicated inspectors. One of them is finishing up being trained. We've had some turnover, but those are the folks who do these inspections for us. Also, our last item is the number of inspections. And as of the date of this report, we had done 13 pre-license inspections and then 146 periodic inspections in this fiscal year.
Does 136 represent the number of licensed breeders now, or is that just what y'all got to?
Those are the inspections that we've done, and it's actually 146. So that's not necessarily the total number of licensees. The inspections are on an 18-month periodic rotation.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Our next report will be from the Licensing Division.
Good morning. I'm Tarsha Red with the Licensing Division.
Tasha, what's your last name?
Red. And apparently Russ's efforts have been successful. We have 11 new licenses issued since our last meeting, which was earlier this fiscal year. And our population is currently at 172, which is 10 higher than we had back in the first quarter of the fiscal year. So there has been some growth, so word's getting out, and that's about it.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you.
Do we have any more cat licensees, or are these all dogs?
We still have only 3 cat breeders, cat-only breeders, and there are 2 breeders that do cats and dogs. You're welcome.
I actually have a question for you.
Yes.
What is the average time from applying for the license to receiving a license?
If they provide all of their information at the time of the application, it's about a 7 to 10 day turnaround.
Okay.
So we can get processed, and that's including the mail time.
How often do they provide everything up front? I work in healthcare, so I can probably get it, but.
Tarsha, Mary Winston here. This is one of our newer board members. Welcome. And I'm going to remind everyone to introduce yourself when
absolutely.
you speak in the mic. And we love your inquisitiveness.
It's all good.
Yeah, so that's the difference in the question. She's new and she's learning.
I am learning, so yes, and I am Cindy Rothermel.
Look, good to meet you, Cindy. It's a 50-50 shot.
Okay.
Sometimes the breeder has spoken with current licensed breeders, so they know what all to send. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just an oversight.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. My
Yes.
name is Andrea Gregg. When you receive the license, how soon do you go out and inspect the property?
That's actually...
Like an enforcement? Yeah, I was wondering how soon when you receive the license, or do they already know the standards of care, everything that goes along with having the license prior to applying?
That's actually a question for Tanya.
Okay. Sorry.
No. Once they, let me do the proper procedure. This is Tanya Guthrow. And once Tarsha and her folks have a completed application, a notice comes to my group, and then the inspection is assigned to one of those 3 inspectors. Now, we have to coordinate the inspection. A lot of these facilities, of course, are out in the country and really far away, so we can't just show up, and I believe we're required to also give them some minimal notice that we're coming. So it varies, but we try to make those the priority because we don't want to stop anybody from getting started doing business, or also to potentially be housing animals in a way that's unsafe.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else
Tarsha
have anything?
again. Any additional questions?
I don't see any more.
Okay.
You're done.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a update report from work group meetings, but there has been no work group meeting since the last meeting, so we gonna skip by that. Okay, recommendations for agenda items for the next meeting.
This is Melanie Mercer. We had submitted questions. They were going to do an online questionnaire for breeders about concerns. What's the status on that?
For the record, Charles Johnson, Assistant General Counsel. As I understand, the survey, when the board last met, was in the middle of the session. And I believe that the staff has been focused on processing the bills and so forth. And we had a discussion about the survey. And as you recall, in the first survey, there was issues with responses that we're trying to work through how to redraft the questions to obtain a better response rate. And so the plan now is, now that the session's done, is to refocus on that survey and to get that accomplished.
Thank you.
Any other recommendations for the agenda for the next meeting?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I assume that you want the survey on that next agenda as well.
Are you asking for a motion on that to vote on?
No, sir. I'm just clarifying that that's to be a item for the next board meeting.
I'm asking for it too.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Anybody in favor, or y'all want to go through with the survey, or we're gonna be,
Or at
what
least-
can,
Yes, that would be lovely.
okay? You want that put on the agenda?
Yes, please.
I need a motion for that.
No, sir.
Okay. Put the survey on the agenda for the next meeting. Anything else?
Steve, Richard Cordes, why don't you have our new members introduce themselves and say a little something about themselves?
That's an excellent idea. We'll start here at my left with Andrea. I did get it.
Yes. My name is Andrea Gregg. I am a law enforcement officer that specializes in animal cruelty. I've been in this field for a very long time. I worked for a veterinarian for 19 years. I hope to help and be very fair on this board.
Thank you. Cynthia?
I'm Cindy Rothermel. I am a rescue director. I am a healthcare worker for over 22 years. So I'm very clinical and I'm very linear and I like data, guys.
Thank you. Is there any other recommendations for an agenda for the next meeting? We didn't have anything come out of the legislature this time concerning this. We won't have a legislature until after. Charles, did you find out if we need a yearly meeting or is it once, twice? How often?
I believe it's a twice-a-year meeting.
You remember that, Tamala? So we discussed it last time and it was once a year.
But if I may, Mr. Chairman, I think you get into an issue that's really not on the agenda. It's something you want to discuss in the next meeting, because otherwise it's not on the agenda.
Okay. We have nothing else for the agenda?
Well, this is Cindy Rothermel, and with reference to the work groups, with the new members on the board, are there any work groups still functioning?
You may have to reappoint work group members, but again, that's not on this agenda. So you may want to do it offline.
Okay. What I'm trying to figure out is if placing work groups on the agenda is beneficial, as if there are no work groups functioning, that would be a waste of our time.
I agree.
Well, if we don't have any, put it on the agenda for the next meeting, we really would need a work group meeting before the next meeting.
No, sir. My comment was to put on the agenda, if you want to appoint work groups, put that on the agenda for the next meeting, to appoint the work groups.
Got you. You want that on the agenda?
That would be wonderful, thank you.
Put that on there, Tamala?
Can we put the word consider? Since right now we don't have any functioning and no titling topic.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else? Now that we move on for the time for the meeting. We did a discussion for the date and time.
I'll make one comment. I think there was maybe some confusion. I am worried that one of our, and I don't know if she's coming or here, but it went from 10 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I think a lot of people who even walked in late, not that, that wasn't maybe the original time. We might need to make sure that we know what time it actually is well in advance. So I'm worried that, a lot of the people in the audience or perhaps one of our
Out here?
because if they walk in at 10 a.m., that might be not so good for us to do that. Just a reminder.
I don't know exactly what happened. I know I did not get the change for the meeting until about 9 o'clock last night. So,
It says discussion on our agenda. Can we leave that up to TDLR to direct us when their best time is, since we are among many groups that you take care of?
Yes, ma'am. And for the record, the discussion about what occurred with the time of this meeting, I consider that to be a discussion under agenda item H, which is the next meeting, so the issues are kind of related, and just so that there's clarity, that this issue is on the agenda.
And we always have this location, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. So that's already set.
Carla James, TDLR. Do you all have a preference in the time?
This is a lot of trips down here.
Well, 9 or 10 in
This-
the morning. I
for
mean-
the time?
Yes, sir. Or afternoon, if you prefer.
I prefer mornings, since I have to drive back to Dallas.
Morning.
So 9, 10, what?
Yeah, either one's, as long as we know.
Sure, absolutely.
And we are setting it where we're gonna leave it up to y'all to set the next meeting. That's what I
Mary
understood.
Winston, Tamla can poll everyone on the board for the next meeting, and also that'll give us a chance to work on the survey, getting that up and running. I was just handed some dates, tentatively April the 18th through 20th. We have open. We have scheduled probably up until then and maybe after then, but for other programs, but we do have that time period open. So if you all wanted to schedule something now, that would be fine, or just put it in your memory banks and Tamla will contact you at a later time.
It's worked well in the past, let Tamla contact us whenever we get stuff. Anything else? Charles, you have anything else?
No, sir.
Adjourned.